I don't know who
Go ahead.
Catherine is. All right, I'm gonna start letting people in. I think that'll let me, right? I can do it even though you're the, yeah, I'll let you in as co-host. Okay, I'm gonna start going. All right, just mute yourself or whatever, and I'll let you know if I need you. Okay? I see you're muted.
Okay.
Thanks. I
Okay.
see. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Okay.
Oh, what's the thing?
Hello.
Hi, Pam.
Hi, Sonia. Are you on there? I'm gonna admit you as a co-host. Okay?
Sounds good.
Because I think I'm gonna need you to be handling the muting of everybody and unmuting, if that's okay, because I'm not even gonna explain it right now. Okay?
No worries.
Thank you. Hi there. I see we have a number of people on. Can people hear me? Hi, Paul. Are you there? Can you hear me, Paul Jiroge? You're on mute right now, Paul. Can you? I want to have people to be able to unmute themselves. There we go.
Have you seen the picture of Joe Biden when he's living?
Okay.
Did it just happen?
No, I just saw it on TikTok.
Like intentionally?
I mean, it looks pretty intentional.
Sonia, can you unmute Paul Jiroge for a minute?
I mean, you don't hold a baby like this.
Sonia, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Can you, I think you're going to have to be muting and unmuting people. Can you unmute Paul right now?
Oh, I feel like it's just,
Paul, do you hear me? This is Pam.
Really?
Yeah, obviously put it in a weird spot, but I think it's just because I don't know why it's not leg like a mom.
Paul, do you hear me?
No one.
I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's weird.
Who would ever hold a baby like that?
I don't know if Paul can hear me or not. I wanted to test.
Hold your friend's baby like that, let alone a random person on
Yeah.
taking a picture.
Like a mom's like,
Can you,
I don't know what it is.
Sonia, can you make me a host and somehow take me off as guest? That's the issue.
Hey, you know the Zoom thing is not.
I've never seen the videos of him
Tanya?
touching girls.
I'm trying.
No, I haven't seen any of this.
There's video of him like stroking.
Because I don't think anybody can hear me right now.
You're in here twice.
I know, that's the problem.
Oh, and
So can you fix that? So that I can mute and unmute people if necessary?
Trump like makes fun of people all the time.
oh, and Trump has the right to do that.
I mean, I don't think Trump's.
Trump has no right to make
He's
fun
an
of anyone.
asshole, but he's not. a pedophile.
Yeah, he has no right to make fun.
Do you
of
see what the issue
anyone
is up there?
whatsoever.
So it shows as you're as a host.
Right, so I'm gonna mute myself as host, there, but it won't let me.
It's not anything.
Wait, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yeah.
But I'm not coming in as double?
12-minute
No,
compilation of him.
Okay, but see, you're hearing me as guest, not host. That's the problem.
you're the host. Pam Menaker is the host. Regular Pam is not. Do you want me to mute Pam?
Go down and put yourself.
Hi.
You know, we can't hear you at all.
Anybody talking?
Perfect.
Nadia, you.
Sonia,
Yes, I hear
can you hear me as host or me?
If you're a host, the host does not have a mic enabled, so I hear you as guest.
Yeah, I think it's because I changed my audio and they didn't update my audio. That's the problem. Because I have earphones. Should I pull those out? Or let it go?
Well, this is Zach. We can hear you. I think it's good.
Zach, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, there's Nadia.
Yes.
Okay, but I don't know if you can only hear me is because you're the co-host. I need somebody who's not a host.
We can all hear you.
You can? Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, thank you. These technical difficulties here, I never know. Okay, it's 12:01 right now. I see Michael and Nadia there. Michael and Nadia, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great, okay. I see we have a number of people on and a number of family members. Thank you all for joining us.
Devaney and Myrna, do you want to get on yourself or on a different one, or do you want to just, you know how to join the link, right? Did I give you one?
You did not, but.
I'll do that.
Okay, we're right now on the Zoom meeting, Michael and Nadia, okay?
Okay.
And
Hello, Pam. Pam, can you hear me?
Yeah, Paul, now I hear you. Yes, I do. I do.
Yeah, but you know, I got a problem because I can't use my computer. I was not able to be on video, and I could hear you, but you could not hear me.
Well, now I can.
My computer. Now I'm using because
Your
I
phone?
just called the telephone number. Yeah, and
Okay.
I'm just using the phone. Yeah.
Okay, is that all right with you? If there's nothing else we can do, then I don't know why your computer's not working. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask,
Forwarded it to on WhatsApp.
Just got it.
if it's okay, we have a number of people on, let me see. If it's okay, I'd like first the family members who are on. Hopefully if you can unmute yourselves. Sonia, are you making that happen? That they could unmute themselves and introduce themselves and who they are briefly so that the media knows who is who's on, okay? So I guess I'll just call on people. I'll try to. Catherine, I see that you're on. Can you unmute yourself? Or Sonia, unmute Catherine? And could Catherine introduce herself?
Yes, hello, I'm Catherine. I'm 52 years old and I'm the mother of Camille. She was, at the time of the crash, she was 28 and she was leaving for Kakamega in Kenya. So Nairobi would have been just a little stop and she never arrived. It was her first day of a new job. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine, Catherine.
It was her first day of a new job. And I would, sorry for my English, and I would thank you really, Michael, for what you just said to the Congress. It was very, very, very warm for us. Well, warm for me. Thank you very much.
Catherine, could you
Thank you
please
for
spell,
organizing.
could you please spell your last name, Catherine, for the media purposes?
Sorry?
Could you please spell your last name for media purposes?
You want me? Sorry, I'm not. Could you speak slowly?
Could you please spell your last name? Your last name, Catherine, and spell it.
Can you spell your last name, Catherine?
Ah, sorry. I'm Catherine Berthet, Berthet, but my daughter didn't have the same name as
Go
me.
ahead.
She was Camille Geoffroy, Geoffroy.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Zippy, Sephora, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is that's ZIPPORAHKURIA. And I'm 24. I live in the UK, and I lost my dad in the ET302 crash. He was from the last legs of his journey.
She's lost weight. Support.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Zippy. Thank you. And is it, I'm not seeing some people, is it Jade?
Yeah,
Jade Ballard, could you please introduce yourself? Thank you.
I'm Jade Ballard. I'm the oldest sister of Micah Meesant. He was my youngest brother. And I'm just one of the Canadian families. So I wanted to just be a part of all of this that's continuing to go on.
Thank you, Jade. You're not just one of the families. You're very important. Thank you for attending. Thank you. Paul Giroge, could you please introduce yourself, even though I know we can't see you, you're on the phone, but please let everybody know that you're here. Paul, can you talk?
Oh, sorry. Pam. My
okay.
name is Paul Njoroge. The first name Paul, the second name Njoroge. I lost my wife and my 3 children and my mom-in-law in the crash of Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302.
Thank you, Paul. Clarissa and Chris Moore, I see that you're on. Could you please introduce yourselves?
Yeah. Okay. I'm Chris Moore, and this is Clarissa.
I'm Clarissa Moore. Yeah.
And we're the parents of Danielle Moore. She was traveling to Kenya on for the environmental assembly with Micah and Angela.
Thank you. And it's CLARISS, MOORE. Chris is CHRIS. Chris and Clarissa Moore. Thank you. I see Javier De Luis is on with us. Javier, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Sorry, just have a little problem here. Hi, I'm Javier De Luis. My sister Graciela was on board the Ethiopian flight. She was on her way to the UN conference. She worked as a interpreter. And my younger sister Isabel, I see, is also on. And I have to leave in a few minutes, but she's going to try to stay on for the duration.
Okay, thank you very much. And I see there's Marianne. Marianne, did you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Marianne Guze-Atkins. I'm the mother of Max Tabiso. He was 35 when he died.
Okay, and if you could spell it, is it M-A-R-I-A-N-N-E? Your last name G-Y-S-A-E, correct?
Right, yes.
Thank you so much for being here, Marianne. We appreciate that. I also see Devaney is here. And I don't know who you're with, Devaney. I can't. Hi there. Did you want to introduce yourselves?
Enrique, nos vemos luego. Es que estoy en la conferencia de prensa de lo de Boeing.
I am Daphne Williams. I'm one of Sammy's friends. I'm Mina Mercado. I'm also one of Sammy's friends.
Thank you for being there. Thank you for being with us. And now, if people could mute themselves if they're not talking, and you certainly will have every opportunity to talk and say whatever you want or answer questions from the press. There's a number of people who are identified as iPad. So if you could now, so I don't recognize some people. So could you introduce yourselves then if you haven't had a chance to talk and say if you're on, please.
Hi, I'm Sangeeta Suneja. I'm Captain Bhavya Suneja's mother. He was the commander of Lion Air aircraft, JT610.
Okay, could you please spell your name? I'm so sorry.
Sangeeta, S-A-N-G-E-E-T-A.
Okay, and you're joining us from where?
New Delhi.
New Delhi. Thank you very much for joining us. And who else is on with us?
I'm Suzanne Camp.
Suzanne Camp, yes.
I'm the mother of Micah Meesant.
Okay, and Suzanne, how do you spell your name?
S-U-Z-A-N-N-E, and my last name is Camp, C-A-M-P. My oldest daughter, Jade Ballard, was just on too.
I see. Okay. And how do you spell your son's name?
M-I-C-A-H-M-E-S-S-E-N-T.
Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. And
thank you for doing this.
Yes, thank you. And there's somebody else, I believe, who's trying to express that they're on.
Hello.
My name.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You've been trying. Go ahead.
My name is Huguette Davids. I lost my husband, Jackson Musoni. I'm speaking from Kigali, Rwanda.
Could you spell your name, please?
Yes.
press.
So my family name is Debets, Debets. My first name is Huguette, Huguette.
And your husband's?
My husband's name is Jackson Musoni, Jackson, Musoni, Musoni.
Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. And I see Isabel is trying to get on as well. Isabel, could you introduce yourself, please? You're now muted, so unmute yourself, Isabel.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay.
My name is Isabel de Luis. I am the sister of Graciela de Luis, who was on her way to Nairobi for the UN conference. And you heard my brother a while ago, and I'm very glad to be able to join you today.
Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you. And is there anybody else who would like to introduce themselves? And of course, Michael and Nadia, did you want to introduce yourselves?
Hello, my name's Mark Pegram.
Okay,
I'm
Mark,
the
yes.
father of Sam Pegram, who was 25 when he passed away on Ethiopian flight E2 302.
And Mark, it's MarkPegram. And where are you joining us from?
From Preston, England.
Preston, England. Thank you. And who else has joined us? Is Yakish joined us?
There is I'm Mathieu Wilm.
Okay, yes.
From France. I've lost my sister, Clémence Isor, who left her husband and two girls aged 9 and 11 at the time of the crash.
Okay, we're very sorry. And could you please spell your name?
My name is the Wilm, so it spells W-I-L-L-M, and the first name is Matthew.
M-A-T-T-H-I-E-U.
M-A-T-T-H-I-E-E-U.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to introduce themselves?
My
who's
name
here?
is Don Atkins.
Oh, there, Don, yes.
I'm the father of Max Tabiso, which Mariana introduced. Max was on his way to the UN Environmental Conference for the World Bank, and I'm calling in from Cape Town.
From Cape Town. And what is your last name, please? Spell it for the media, please.
Atkins, E-D-K-I-N-S.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else
Hello.
who'd like to introduce themselves?
Hi, this is.
I'm already pulled a few cuts.
Go ahead. Tom, are you trying to talk?
Yes. I would want to also introduce myself.
Yes, please.
I am Tom Kabau. We lost our younger brother, George Kabau, on that photo, who had gone to do some work in Ethiopia, and I'm calling from Nairobi.
From Nairobi, and it's K-A-B-A-U, correct? Your last name?
Yes, K-A-B-A-U.
Yes, and the first name is Tom, T-O-M.
Yes, T-O-M.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Is there anyone else who's trying to introduce themselves?
Yes. Hi, it's Roland Rayhorn.
Okay. Roland?
Can you see me actually? I'm not sure if I have to share a screen.
I can see you, but your ID's a bunch of letters. So
yes, that would be Joan Vincent.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm Roland Rayhorn, and my daughter Angela was on flight 302. Heading to Nairobi, like the Moors and the Masons and
could you please spell your name?
Quaz.
Yes, I know, and everyone here. Yes, a very tragic day. And could you please spell your name for us?
Yeah, Roland Rehhorn. And my wife Joan is not here, and her name is Joan Vincent, Vincent.
And your daughter's name was, did you say it was Angelo?
Angela.
Angela.
A-N-G-E-L-A.
That's what I thought. I thought I heard Angelo, and I thought that was a little, well, different. Anyway, Angela. And you're calling from where, Roland?
Aurelia, Ontario, Canada.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Is there anyone else who'd like to introduce themselves who are on the Zoom call here, the Zoom press conference? Is it Chica? Are you trying to introduce yourself?
Yeah.
Go ahead, speak up, speak up.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Shikha Basi. I'm calling from Chennai, India. And this is my husband. He is Mr. Rajesh. And we've lost, this is Captain Bhavya Suneja. He was the commander of the Lion Air crash. And we've lost the firstborn of our family. And such a tragic thing that it's changed completely the course of life of the whole family. We're the shattered lot.
Yes, doctor, we're very, very sorry for your loss. Could you please spell your name and the names of everybody that you mentioned here, doctor? If you could spell your name.
My name is
S-H?
I-K-H-A.
And last name?
B-A-S-S-I.
And your husband, you said?
He is Mr. Rajesh, R-A-J-E-S-H.
Okay. And the same last name.
B-A-S-S-I. He is holding a very high position with Air India. He is an engineer, and he is deputy general manager in the Air India. So he was the kind of mentor for the commander that we lost.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. And
Could you spell the name of your son, please?
The name of
Captain Bhavya, B-H-A-V-Y-E-S-U-N-E-J-A. Bhavya Suneja.
Thank you.
My sister, he was my sister's son. My sister is around Sangeeta Suneja. Dee, are you around to introduce?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, I think you introduced yourself, correct?
Yeah, I'm in Delhi. I'm from Delhi.
You're
She's
in Delhi.
Chennai.
She's where? Yeah, where are you calling from, doctor?
I'm calling from Chennai.
India. Okay.
India, Chennai.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Is there anyone else who wants to introduce themselves? Do I see Gladys?
Yeah, I'm Gladys, and I'm from Calgary, Canada. And I lost Derek, my husband, Derek. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, maybe raise it a little bit. Thank you. The picture.
Yeah.
We can see you. Hi, Gladys.
Hi. Yeah, he was on his way to Kenya to visit family because we are originally from Kenya, and we lost him.
Gladys, can you spell your first and last name?
My first name is G-L-A-D-Y-S, Gladys. My last name is Kivia, K-I-V-I-A. And Derek's first name is D-E-R-I-C-K. His last name is L-W-U-G-I.
Thank you so much, Gladys. I'm so sorry, but thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who's on who would like to introduce themselves who are part of this call? Okay, at this point, I'm going to open it up to, I guess, initially, just to Michael and Nadia. Michael in particular, who was there personally with Nadia at the hearing this morning. And Michael, is there something? Michael Stumo, S-T-U-M-O. His wife is Nadia, N-A-D-I-A, Milleron, M-I-L-L-E-R-O-N. And as you probably might have all seen or heard, that Michael was allowed to testify. He learned late last night, late in the day yesterday, and Nadia was there as well. Their loss was their daughter, Samya, S-A-M-Y-A, Rose Stumo, age 24. And she was on the flight as well. So Michael, I think I'm just gonna open it up with you if you wanted to make some comments, and then afterward, if others want to make comments, and then if the media, I can see there are certain media people on who, I see Dominic Gates from Seattle. If they want to ask questions, I'm going to open it up to questions. But first, if there's some people who would like to make comments. Michael?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. I'm hoping everybody else can too.
So was it, the multiple challenges here, COVID challenge, so nobody else could come except us to Washington. There's a challenge of actually getting in. We came down Monday with the intent to convince the committee that they needed to have a family witness, a family member as a witness. And so that was a challenge. And, I was preparing written testimony for the record, which I sent out to some of the family members. And that challenge was to boil down so much information into a useful narrative for Senate action. And Senate action is different than FAA action or media action, to think about what the Senate can actually do if it chose to do it. And so putting that together, while we weren't sure if I'd be allowed to testify, and we actually met with Senator Blumenthal from Connecticut, which is the state I used to live in, yesterday, and he was a bit pessimistic. He said, but the minority, to actually enforce the minority's right to a witness, you have to actually get a vote on the Senate, a full Senate vote on the floor. He said that's highly unlikely. That's not going to happen by tomorrow. But then by the end of the day, we actually did.
Dominic Gates' meeting to leave, and he asked if he could ask a question.
Oh, did Dominic Gates need a question? Oh, I didn't hear.
I would like to jump in. I apologize.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you wouldn't mind, because I have to write a story. I'm on deadline, and so I have to leave pretty soon. I just want to ask one question, and this format is very, very difficult. First of all, let me say how sorry I am for the loss you've all had. But the question I have today, and perhaps I'll put it, I need to put it to one person rather than the whole group, because it's not going to work. And perhaps I'll ask Rajesh Basi in India, because of your position with Air India and your knowledge of aviation, I'd like to ask you this question. Obviously, the certification of the MAX was completely flawed, and Boeing is responsible for what happened. But now they are supposedly updating the MAX, and the FAA has taken a very long time, more than a year, to go through the update and to try to make sure it is suitable. Will any new certification process satisfy you that the MAX is safe to fly again? Are there perhaps some feeling that it should never do so? What do you think of that? And I'll ask Rajesh first, and anyone else who wants to answer, perhaps let me know.
Hi, this is Rajesh. See, my personal feeling is that Boeing had the airframe which is many, many years old, and it kept on changing the engines one after the other. And this engine, because of its because of the diameter of the inlet, had to be moved much ahead of the wings. So even if they have taken only the engine certification, not the airframe as a total. Actually, if Boeing had to move the engine on this airframe, there should have been a total recertification. Why there was a need of a MCAS software? Because this engine was so heavy that it was creating a stall position for the aircraft. To avoid that, Boeing had to put that MCAS software, which will override even pilot's commands. And irony of the fact was that not even a single pilot was aware of it.
What his question is,
right? But
whether it can be brought back. What certification?
Given your concern about the positioning of the engine, do you think that fixing MCAS and fixing other things in the flight control system is enough to satisfy you?
Total stability of the aircraft should be recertified, should be re-examined, should be redesigned. And why this fact was hidden from the engineers and pilots? And Boeing, in a way to push the product in the market fast to earn more profit, they have not even bothered about aviation safety. They just wanted to push the product in the market very fast, actually, so that only on the simulator training was given to the pilots on the iPad. And they were told that this Boeing model Max is same as NG or Dash 800, which was never had this MCAS software in that. So that was the biggest flaw. And even when some internal people who were in the know-how of the system tried to get the point out, they were not heard. They were just subdued, just to get the economic viability of the aircraft, just to have more, just to beat the competition in the market. Why so? My concern is why so? And even after there was one crash in Indonesia of JT610 and all were crying foul, Boeing was trying to cover up. They were not at all bothered about examining. They were pushing it on the pilot's training. They were pushing it on the pilot's attitude. They were pushing on the cockpit management, but they never were interested to re-examine the design of the whole thing. So,
all right. Well, look. Let me just find. Let me just pin one.
Okay. Dominic, what he's trying to say is there is you're talking about what can be done that the Max can be brought back. So the first point is there's a complete loss of faith in the company. A company of Boeing standing, the company which has brought so many aircrafts from, USA, it has lost, people have lost faith in the management, faith in the company. They have done stuff which, and it's not only about Boeing, it's also about FAA, the people who have certified such. So how does, you tell me, Dominic, how does one, revive that faith, trust in anyone? And where 359 people have lost their lives, so many families who've got really affected, not only them, it's like everywhere people know that things have gone very, very wrong with Max in the aviation industry. How does one buy back that trust? That is the first question. We'll go to certification and we'll go to other things later. But the first thing is, whatever he said was trust. How do we trust that they won't cover up an FAA and Boeing, that they won't just, because there's a lot of money involved. There's huge amount of money involved. There's so many Max aircrafts all around, which are just lying. We understand there's a lot of money that has been invested. Something needs to be done, but again, there won't be a shortcut. How does the world believe that? How does one believe that? Probably, I mean, like everybody, Boeing and FAA have to, relook, they have to buy back the world's
Excuse me 1 second, but
they have
Javier
to
de Luis,
accept it. They have not for once accepted that they have gone wrong. They have to go on a back foot to come in front. If they want to move on, first they have to accept it. Where all they have gone, the first point, Dominic, lies in acceptance. They are still living in a denial and wanting to push the things as it is. It cannot happen. It just cannot happen. This aircraft cannot go back to air with a recertification. I don't think any passenger would fly on that.
Okay. Well, may I ask one question? It was to Michael, in fact. Well, thank you again for having spoken like that on our. on our behalf, and especially in Europe and in France and our issues here versus Boeing. And I wanted to ask, they asked you, well, I think it's Senator Markey who asked you if they could concretely do anything to favorize, to facilitate everything. And I remember, but I maybe misunderstood that you asked that the issue about the territory, the issue about the countries should not be an issue anymore. And you asked also for any other modification. So I would ask, do you think you will have been heard, or it's no point? Okay, they said you okay. I'm troubled. I'm so sorry for your loss, and they won't do anything. What do you feel about what you've said, and how you were received by them? And thank you, really thank you for us.
Yeah, I think it's part of the process. I mean, I think I was heard, but there's more to be done. It's a process, but I know Javier DeLuis can answer Dominic Gates's question. Javier, would you, and I'll come back to you in a second, Catherine, just because Javier has to leave in a few minutes. Javier, do you have something to say on whether the MAX should fly again?
Yes, hi, sure. Mr. Gates, if I understood you correctly, your question was, do we think that it can be made safe to fly? I think that in general, sure, it can be made safe. I don't have a lot of confidence that the current path that we're on is going to get us there. And the primary reason I've come to believe is that we're dealing with, Boeing keeps trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. The square peg is a software solution to an aerodynamic problem. The round hole is this architecture heritage that they have that dates back 50 years. Why was the MCAS such a disaster? It wasn't because it was software. It was a disaster because it was, well, it was bad software, yes, but it was also running on a single computer with a single strength, with no fault tolerance in the sensor system. We know how to make computers and computer systems that are reliable and fault tolerant, et cetera. We've been doing it for 30 or 40 years. Boeing has been doing it for the last 15 years. But you don't have one computer running a hacked up piece of software. You have multiple computers, they're voting, you have multiple sensors, et cetera, et cetera. We know how to do this. Now, what are they proposing? They're proposing using 2 computers and 2 sensors. Now, you know, 2 computers and 2 sensors just means that if they don't agree, you're never going to know which one's right. So I have a fundamental problem with that, right? I mean, you just don't do that. But if they were to break out of their round hole and put a modern avionics system into this aircraft with a modern set of sensors and redundancies and voting and things like that, then yes, I think it can be made safe. Now, my preference would be for an aerodynamic problem to be handled aerodynamically by putting in some sort of flight surface in the tail to put a pitch down moment when the nose is up, or some sort of lift eliminators around the nacelles or anything like that. That would be my preference. I understand that they can't do that because of the height, which, by the way, is another example of a round peg in a round hole. They have this heritage of this low aircraft because they didn't have jetways back when it was built, and it keeps on forcing them into design decisions that are just don't make any sense. So
I think we should mention that, Javier, you are an aerospace engineer by profession. Is that
yes,
correct?
I'm an aerospace engineer, primarily on the space side, but I have a doctorate in aerospace engineering from MIT.
All right. That's both answers from Javier and from Rajesh are very useful. Thank you. Excuse me, but I have to leave the meeting, and I will talk to 1 or 2 other people separately if I can later.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you. Is there anyone else then who wants to either ask a question or make a statement here for the other members of the press who are on?
We should ask the reporters if they have questions, right?
Okay, if I unmute everybody. All right, we'll unmute everybody at this point because it's difficult to, and so do any of the media people, anybody from the press have any questions if you can't unmute yourselves? Okay, then at this point, is there anybody who else would like, I know Chris Moore said he wanted to say something.
Ian
Yeah.
Duncan has a question. He sent, the chat said Ian Duncan from the Washington Post has a question.
Hi, can
Okay.
you hear me okay?
Ian Duncan, are you available to speak? Are you unmuted?
Yeah, it should be, I think.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Thanks for doing this. Michael, I just wondered, I mean, you had the benefit of being in the room, right, when Mr. Dixon was testifying. What did you sort of take away from his demeanor? What did you take away from what he said? Do you sort of have confidence in his leadership of the FAA at the moment?
Dixon is a solid personality. He's knowledgeable. He talks well. He's got a big agency. And the fact that there's a divergence between his actions and his words seems to be that there are agency blockages that either he doesn't have the ability or the desire to fix. For example, we as families are not happy that they promise transparency to us but don't deliver, but the Senate has the same problem, and he never answered it. They're blocking the Senate Commerce Committee from interviewing witnesses. They're blocking them from receiving answers to questions. And that's someone an agency head could go in, and if he had leadership qualities, would go back and break some plates and say, you fix this now. So for some reason that hasn't happened, either because he can't or he won't. So he presents well, but actions and words are different.
Anybody else, if they need to speak or want to ask, could you either, if you want to raise your hand either physically or if you know how to raise your hand on the computer here under the list of participants. I know Chris Moore mentioned that he wanted to say something. So are there, okay. Could you unmute, Juicy? Go ahead.
Yep. Well, I guess I was more willing to.
We'll get to you next then.
If there's any questions from the press, but essentially, after hearing Dixon today, I have no confidence in his leadership. We don't. First of all, we don't see any accountability structure in place, and again, they're just words. And I agree with Michael that with the SMS, we still don't know how he's going to ensure we have the transparency, et cetera. It's just going to be a number of staff just checking over checklists from Boeing, and
Right.
we don't have that direct involvement with Boeing, which is what you need. Again, it's I didn't hear any of the right words from Dixon today that would suggest that there's a change in a direction, either from Boeing, but especially FAA. I feel that they are captured.
Go ahead and speak. Go ahead.
Could I just add to what Chris has said?
Sure,
I think for me, watching the hearing was extremely bewildering. At the fact that Administrator Dixon essentially refused to continue to cooperate. He couldn't give any guarantee that he would cooperate. He said he would do his best, and his best thus far has not been good enough. One thing that I picked up on was what Senator Blumenthal said about calling into question whether he really is the right man for the job. And I think today's hearing has showed that he will continue to be complicit, and the FAA will keep. For me, essentially, I think what I can say of today's hearing is there's a confirmation that Dixon is just full of empty sentiments and empty promises. The amount of pain that we feel by the fact that it's been a year after our loved one's death and nobody has still been held accountable, and the FAA continues to facilitate a sort of like protection for Boeing, for them also not to be held accountable, is extremely heartbreaking. I lost my dad It's been a year since I've spoken to my dad, and that was the last time that I saw him. But nobody has lost so much as a penny from their paycheck. Nobody has been disciplined. And it calls to question whether he is qualified to continue leading the FAA. As somebody from outside of the USA, I would hope that none of the other aviation authorities would follow suit in the example of Dixon or the FAA, because this is alarming. The amount of complicity that was evident today in the death of our loved ones. And I will say that, you know, moving forward, if the 737 MAX is certified without further corrections and without further compliance from the FAA, they ought to be aware that they be complicit in any further deaths of any more loved ones due to their lack of accountability, their lack of transparency. You know, we have lost, for some of us, we have lost everything, and they choose to hold their cards close to their chest. So I think that's the one thing that I would pick up on. Blumenthal, Senator Blumenthal talked about it being, you know, corporate pressure over consumer safety, you know, and it seems to be a growing trend in the US at the moment, you know, with everything else that's happening, the current climate. You know, people seem to be more concerned about profits, property, than they are about people. And this confirms that. And if he's not in a position to guarantee transparency to the people that he owes it to most, which is us as the victim families, and also to the American public, then he should not be in a position where he's supposed to be leading innovation in safety. And I think that's all that I have to say.
One common theme I heard today from a lot of the participants, or the senators, and even Michael, is that they haven't had the information sent back to them. So how can you say that you're transparent when you won't even divulge the information as requested? And he said that he's on a road to transparency and all this stuff. It's not going to happen. Okay, it's just not going to happen. I have no confidence whatsoever in this in the FAA. Even Transport Canada had sent, before the first crash and after the first crash, they requested information on the anti-stall system, and the FAA would not turn that over to Transport Canada, who were validating the plane. So, and that was essential, and that's what killed our loved ones. And how callous they could be. Anyways, it's in a nutshell, they're not trusted.
Huguette, I know you've been very patient. Could you want to speak? Thank you.
Yes. So, like I said before, I lost the father of my 3 children, Jackson Musoni, the only Rwandan on the plane, together with 157 others. Honestly, my heart is racing right now because I have so many more questions than I had before this whole hearing. And one thing that I kept seeing was, I was actually surprised because us as family members, we've never really gotten any response from the FAA, regardless of the meeting that we had physically in Washington last year, where so many promises were made. And one of the promises was to get back at our questions as much as possible. And like the other family members were discussing the transparency, which hasn't been done at all. But I'm not surprised. I wasn't expecting much from our side. But what does surprise me is the disrespect actually to do the same towards the senators that have been requesting documents and answers that they were not even answered to, is what blows my mind. I had hope for the administrative director of the FAA after the meeting last year, but my hope and faith is completely crushed in a million pieces. And now I know what we stand against. Now, the other thing that I've noticed also is I keep sensing this sort of brotherhood between the FAA and Boeing, regardless of the presumption of Boeing that they want to turn this thing into no liability towards them, which is to me a huge diss towards the FAA. And yet I feel like the FAA keeps protecting them in some sort of level. I don't understand that. Like I have a million questions. What are they hiding from us? What is the link here? This is not healthy at all, the relationship between those two. Now, another thing, at the end where Michael was given his statement, which he did very, very well. I could not have expected better than that. The questions by several senators, including Blumenthal, was, well, the comments more was, we are going to do everything to help this never happen in the future. But nobody really says or promises that this bill that is full of beep, I don't want to cut some video, is it gonna change? Are they gonna change this bill? Are they gonna make it more stronger in terms of aviation safety? I mean, it's nice to hear that everybody says, I'm sorry for your loss, I'm sorry for your loss. Okay, we got to hear that a million times, yet our people are not coming back to us. Now, what is going to be done? There's a certain power, a lot of power that the senators have, the committee has, to put in this bill, in this new bill that is going to come, certain things that will prevent this from happening again. Why am I not hearing the change in the bill? This bill is so disappointing. Is there going to be a change? Why isn't that clear in this meeting? Anyway, I'm kind of upset, but then again, I was prepared for the worst. So that is my comments.
Okay, we're now going to unmute. Dave Koenig from Associated Press has a question. Dave, can you ask your question, please?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Dave, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to, and I joined a couple minutes late, so excuse me if this was brought up, but I did want to know, Michael talked about this a little bit during the hearing, but what do the family members think about Boeing wanting immunity because FAA certified the plane, and when did you hear about it?
Michael, you have to unmute yourself, or
I think he was asking for what others thought, if I heard him right.
okay.
Yeah, I guess so. That's true. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, and Huguette, can you please identify yourself because Dave Koenig from Associated Press is asking. Could you identify? He joined a little late. Please identify.
Me?
Yes, he wanted to know because I think he joined late. He didn't hear who you are.
Okay. So my name is Huguette Debets, Huguette, Debets, Debets. I lost the father of my 3 children, Jackson Musoni, the only Rwandan on the plane, Jackson Musoni, Musoni, who was working for UNHCR in Darfur, and he was on his way to Nairobi for the UN conference like many in this plane.
Thank you. And then in answer to Dave Koenig's question that he just asked about, does anybody want to answer that?
I'd like to jump in. Can I go on?
Who's talking now? Paul?
Yeah, this
Paul.
Paul. Yeah.
Paul Giroga. Yes, go ahead, please.
I don't know if you can see me on video.
Yes, you can.
Okay. Now I'm gonna comment on that. I'm gonna try to answer that question, and then I'm also gonna comment on the hearing today. The question is, can a family member talk about Boeing wanting immunity because FAA certified the MAX? When did you hear about that? How did you feel about that? You know, that's appalling. Boeing has been trying to fight with our lawyers. Their argument is based on the fact that the FAA certified the plane. They did all what they could. They followed the procedures and the required as per the current framework of operations. And at this point, they've never accepted responsibility. They've never, they've apologized to cameras. And I know they have said sorry to us. That's not apologizing. That's just feeling sorry for us. And given all what has come, all what has been uncovered so far about what happened within Boeing and how they treated the FAA, I would think that Boeing should know that they have 100% responsibility over the deaths of our loved ones, over the deaths of 346 people. And to hear them, try to argue or to use such kind of a statement to our lawyers, I mean, that's appalling. That's really, really perplexing to us. And that's, I keep repeating this, I keep saying that it's an insult to humanity. Sometimes you gotta be a human being. Once you know the damage that you have done, once you see the effects that you've caused to people, then you have to be a human being, sit back and realize that I have to make it right. So it's an insult to humanity that they can continue doing that. Now, I'm gonna go on to comment on the hearing today. And I must say that I thank Chairman Wika and Ranking Member Cantwell for proposing a bill. In all ways, I do think that they have done some work and making sure that they propose some changes on the regulatory framework. They came up with a draft bill and we commented on it, and they sort of looked at it again and revised it and did some improvements. So we really appreciate that. And I must also thank them for allowing Michael to testify today. He represents a person who lost, who painfully lost a loved one. And he spoke about being at the crash site and seeing all what was left. I must say, and it has to be known that our family members were annihilated completely. You go to that place, you would have known that there was nothing left at all. And that's what makes it difficult to live through this. I must say that I also think, I recognize the presence of Senator Blumenthal, Senator Markey, Senator Cruz, and especially Senator Cruz for always thinking about us. But I must also call out Senator Shaz, Senator Scott, Senator Duckworth. They have no business being in that committee at all. I must say that they came with their illusions or delusions of what they wanted to speak about. The committee today and the session today, the hearing today was for the 737 MAX. It was not about the COVID-19 and what the FAA is doing. I think their arguments, their deliberations were misplaced, and they have to know that. The next time they go into a hearing, they have to know what's going on and what is being deliberated in that hearing. I felt that they did not respect us. I felt that they did not respect the presence of Michael and Nadia there. They did not respect they didn't know that we were watching, but they didn't respect us at all. To come there and speak about other issues other than the 737 MAX crisis, which is a crisis enough that has caused us a lot of pain and anguish, and something that will never leave us any day of our lives. I think that's all what I'm going to say today. For now.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Is there anyone else?
Follow up, Paul, please?
Don, you wanted to speak? Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is about the criminal accountability and what comes out of the Senate hearing. Our family for sure would like to see Boeing held criminally accountable. And I'm just wondering what role the Senate committee has to play in this. And Michael and Nadia, I'm really grateful that you were there representing us and speaking so eloquently about the loss that we've all shared. But still, I come out of this not feeling any sense of how is Boeing going to be held criminally accountable for this.
Could I answer David's question?
Don, who are you addressing your question to?
I'm addressing my question to anybody who has any information about this. I'm not sure because I don't know America. I don't know American justice system. I don't know who is able to hold Boeing executives accountable criminally. I know me as a person, individual from South Africa, I don't think I have that possibility to do that. So in America, who is able to do that? Can the Senate, can the American government hold Boeing criminally accountable for the loss of our loved ones? Is that possible? Who is able to make that decision, or is who going to stop anybody from keeping Boeing executives from being held criminally accountable?
Don, you do have a role to play in that, since it doesn't matter who the crime was against. If it was against an international person or an American, it doesn't matter. A crime is still a crime. And the Department of Justice pursues that, or they don't, depending on their decision. They are pursuing a fraud investigation against Boeing in which we're not victims. If we're victims of a criminal charge that they're pursuing, we have a role to play. You or anybody has a role to play as a victim. It's just that they haven't charged Boeing with any crime in which we are a victim yet. So we wrote, our lawyers wrote up some causes of action that they believe could be, should be pursued by the Department of Justice. But anyone can do that. Anyone can say, it's just a matter of convincing the Department of Justice to pursue it. That's what it is. It doesn't have any restriction on nationality.
Right, Don, for everybody, as all of you may know, the lawyers, Clifford Law Offices, and all these lawyers that you have hired are for a civil case. Criminal matters, Don, in the United States have to be brought by a governmental entity. That would be by the state. In this case, though, as Nadia mentioned, it'd be the U.S. government. That'd be the Department of Justice. So civil and criminal are two separate actions, and a governmental entity would have to decide to bring that. And that's not something civil lawyers who, for instance, Clifford Law Offices, who I work for, that we don't have that authority to do that. They have to decide, the state or the federal government has to decide if a level of conduct arises to a criminal state. And so, as Nadia said, that you can make the Department of Justice aware of, and all the families can, but then that decision ultimately lies with the federal government, and in here that's the Department of Justice.
Okay, thank you, Pam, and thank you, Nadia. But for example, for instance, in France, there has been a complaint against Boeing. Well, we are not at that time still victims or have been made a complaint, but there is an instruction in France against Boeing. Well, Matthew will complete, but for the charge of involuntary homicide. Well, at that time, it's not progressing in France, but there is still, and there is an instruction that will take time, but there is, at the civil state, an instruction. Can you confirm me, Matthew, about that?
Yes, sure. In France, unlike in the US, when there is an accident involving many victims, the prosecutors systematically opens a case, a criminal case. So it's the prosecutor, it's not the victims. And in theory, the Boeing can be can be sued for that. So the problem is that in France, criminal investigations last decades. It's a problem here because the justice process is very, very, very long. For instance, the Concorde, who crashed at the beginning of year 2003, I think, the case has been closed just a few months ago. So it's 15 years. So we have, in theory, the possibility to conduct a criminal investigation in France. And thanks, hopefully, to the bilateral agreements between France and the US for criminal investigation, we can do something. But I don't think it will be an easy way.
Yes, but the charge is already put by the prosecutors in France as involuntary homicide. The words have been written.
Yes.
It's not. The charge has not been settled, but the request and the inquiry is already beginning. Well, the words have been settled. Involuntary homicide.
Okay, I think
Yes, I think I don't know if it's. I'm not a lawyer at all. I'm an engineer, aerospace
No.
engineer. But I think it's the equivalent in France from in the US than the murder, the level 2 murder. I think.
obviously, I think there are differences in the law and the way it's being handled in France versus the United States. And honestly, none of us are criminal experts here. It's an excellent question, of course, but I don't know if it can be answered right now. But thank you, Catherine,
So
for
there
your
can't
input
be
on
any
that.
criminal proceedings? There
Did
can't be
you-
any criminal proceedings, sir?
Who's talking now? I'm sorry.
Can I mention? Can I speak something about that? The action in France. I have done by virtue of some work I've done on international law. It is possible for any country. There are some principles of prosecutions for public criminal prosecutions, and it is possible for countries. The fact is that most countries have not taken that option, and when you take action most of the times against corporates of other states, of course, there could be other factors, including diplomatic considerations, international politics, etc. But that is very possible. It is accepted that if your nationalities were affected by an action, if your nationals were affected by the actions of an entity of another country, I think it is either called a passive nationality principle or active nationality principle. I cannot remember currently. Right now, I would need to confirm. But it's one of those that either active nationality principle or passive nationality principle. It is accepted that a state can take action against activities of foreigners when their own citizens are affected through their alleged criminal activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Zippy, did you want to add something here?
Yeah, I just wanted to answer David Cohen's question where he says, can a family member talk about Boeing wanting immunity because FAA certified the MAX? When did you hear about that and how did you feel about it? The first time that I heard about it was today, and what I feel about it is number one, it confirms that Boeing are well aware of their wrongdoing in this. I think for me, it's for you to want immunity is an indication of your awareness of your wrongdoing. So for me, it's almost an admission of guilt. And secondly, it goes to show the level of comfortability Boeing have demanding immunity from the FAA. It goes to verify our claims of their relationship being too close to comfort. It just seems as though this is a rubber stamping event for the FAA. They don't seem to have any real control. The audacity to be able to ask for immunity should also speak to Boeing's ethics as a company, to ask to not be reprimanded for your wrongdoing after continuously denying your wrongdoing. Should speak to us as people on the ethos and the current leadership of Boeing, which, for me, I don't think it's the FAA that needs new leadership. Boeing has been long overdue. David Calhoun, he's as responsible to me for my father's death as David Muhlenberg was, and this is a confirmation of that. So I think that would be how I feel. It's absolutely heart-wrenching that you would ask for immunity, that you feel like you are entitled to immunity after you have taken 346 lives.
Thank you, Zippy. Thank you.
Yeah, I follow
And
up.
did Mark, I'm sorry, did
I-
somebody else want to speak, or Mark Pegram mentioned something? Did you want to say something, Mark, or is there somebody else who wants to speak?
Matthew,
Mark? Did you type something? In
Sorry,
you
I was
wanted
just
to
looking for
say?
the unmute button.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've typed in the text, but one, I don't think the FAA should be Boeing should be able to hide behind certification anyway. And one welcome thing that Stephen Dixon did say today was that, you know, regardless of certification, Boeing still have an obligation to design and produce safe aircraft. I don't think anyone would dispute that. But obviously that certification itself, we now know from documents that have been made public, that certification was based on misleading information at best, you know, downright lies at worst. And certainly the non-disclosure of relevant facts, the convenient downgrading of the MCAS systems security rating so that it didn't have to be fully disclosed and approved, and all the things we've heard about today and before, you know, regarding type certification and, you know, how radically different that aircraft now is, you know, size-wise, aerodynamically, and in terms of the control systems to the, you know, the original type. Yet they still getting away with, you know, minor recertifications each time.
Thank you, Mark. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak? I know Chris Moore, you've been outspoken on this.
I would.
Who's trying to talk here?
Can
I'm
I
sorry.
speak, Tom Cabau?
Tom, sure, okay.
Yes, I would want to comment on the issue of immunity. Of course, I was unable to listen to the presentation in the Senate hearing, but I appreciate the presentation that Michael did on our behalf. I also appreciate the sentiments raised by Zipporah around the issue of immunity. Of course, I'm a Kenyan lawyer. I don't know much about American law, but there are some basic principles. For instance, Boeing attempting to seek immunity through legislation, and of course I've heard it now and not heard it before, would bring in an aspect of retrospective or retroactive, trying to protect something, create immunity after the act, which itself would be, when you look at the American legal system that comes from the common law tradition, is very progressive legal system. That is something which is, I certainly don't think would work or will go through. And even if there was an attempt for the Senate to do that, that again would be challenged through the courts, because it is inconsistent with the legal principles that you do not create certain, you don't create immunities, you don't create liabilities, because the two are interrelated after an act. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Is there someone else who would like to comment on some of the
yes.
questions that have been posed?
Please, this is Mathieu Wilm speaking from, so I'm not a lawyer, I'm an engineer, so I will say the engineer point of view. The hearing was about the certification process and the flows in the process. But, you know, an accident has multiple factors, and the root cause in the case of the Boeing MAX is an unsafe design, you know. So the fact that the FAA certification process didn't catch it is not the root cause. It's a secondary or third cause. It's not the root cause. And it's not because sorry, you follow a process of certification that dumb design, even if certified, it's still a dumb design, you know. And Dixon, I think that at one time Dixon said, it's not because you match every rules of the certification regulation that you have a safe product. And that's very important. The root of the problem is the architecture of the aircraft and the unsafe design. So immunity, from a technical point of view, it's impossible. You know, an aircraft manufacturer is responsible for its design, for its architecture.
Matthew, thank you very much. Chris Moore, anyone else would like to comment on this? Or any issue for that matter that came up today?
I would like to comment on the no liability of Boeing. Honestly, I'm not surprised because I was discussing this with Nadia yesterday. Many corporations who are responsible for mistakes that causes deaths try to no liability thing over and over again. I must say that for them to use this trick only proves what they are about. So the more time passes, the more they try to save themselves, but the opposite happens. So I would like to see, or I wonder in what world this could even be possible. But it doesn't mean that the FAA is not responsible also. They have their part in it, but the manufacturer is Boeing. Many times has been proven that they knew about these mistakes and they knew that planes were going to crash eventually. So it doesn't get stronger than that. I wonder what justice system would accept this. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. Thank you. Chris Moore, I think you've been trying to come on, please.
Yeah, well, I think whatever regarding the immunity part, I think it's already been said, and I think it's just ridiculous that that they would actually try that. But of course, they would want to have anything that would limit their liability. But under tort law, they're definitely culpable. So I mean, I don't think it'll hold any weight. But I think everything has been said already. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else that I'm trying to see here with the notes also that if anybody wants to say anything else, or if there are any other questions from the press? Dave, I see ABC News is on. Otherwise, if I'm hoping, I know it went over a little over an hour or so, but if I'm hoping this was helpful for everybody and informative. And I know it was very difficult this morning, the hearing and listening to the FAA administrator. And I think that it was actually, at least I thought, a very wonderful thing that Michael Stumo kept pushing on behalf of everybody to speak, and that at least the families got to have some say at today's hearing. And I think that a lot of the senators were really trying to listen. And I saw, of course, Nadia was trying to hold the pictures of everybody in the back, at least to make that statement that, to put faces to everyone's loss here. And as Huguette, I think, mentioned that, pictures I know are just pictures, and it's really, of course, people we're talking about here. And I'm hoping that all this effort here will help, I know, to just help others in the future, because unfortunately, your lost one, your loved ones are lost, and I wish that we could bring them back. It's not what anybody can do. But again, I appreciate everybody taking the time here. I hope everyone got to speak or say what they wanted to say. And is that Paul?
Yeah. Before
Go
you
ahead,
finish,
Paul. Sure.
Yeah. Before we finish, may I request the media persons here to somehow try to get to the bottom of how these hearings are conducted, and why we always have these people come to testify and they cannot answer questions unequivocally. And at the end of the day, it feels like it's a waste of time because Or I remember when Muhlenberg was there to testify and he could not even answer some of the basic questions. It's the same thing with Dixon today. He was always beating around the bush, so to say. He could not answer questions unequivocally, and that really is frustrating, because I would think that the committees that are convened and all these hearings that are convened, they are the highest authority to give us some answers, and the world deserves to know, to get some of these answers, and we don't seem to get them. We know that they have. They've concealed information. Even the FAA, not only Boeing concealed information. They've not been wanting to deliver that information to our lawyers, and we have the FAA as well. The FAA is a government agency. It should be able to deliver information immediately. That information has been requested by the committee. This is the highest authority that can really help the world get answers, because it's not just about Americans. And I would say that some of the senators don't acknowledge that there were 346 people lost in the crash. The mother of one of the commander, the co-pilot in the Indonesian cases, she's been fighting for justice. She's been fighting for aviation safety for a long time. Nobody recognized her. And Senator Blumenthal acknowledged that there could not have been Senator Blumenthal or Senator Markey, one of them, talked about how another crash would not have happened if they grounded the Max after the first crash. In Indonesia, the co-pilot and the captain, they have been blamed for the deaths of all those people. Do you know how a big burden it is for their families, their mothers, to live with that? Everybody telling them that you killed our people. And it's the same thing, the same theory that they wanted to propagate. And, this is something that the media people should always focus on, that at the end of the day, when all this happened, everything, they wanted to push everything, to shift everything to all these so-called foreign powers. That narrative changed over time. And I would expect that the senators should acknowledge that there are 346 people who died. And all those people are distributed all over the world. It's not just about Americans. They gotta make decisions for the sake of humanity.
I had spoken to Sully. I had written to Sully on his Facebook, and then Sully had given this thing. They have no business telling that it is the pilot's fault. They are just trying to blame it. Sully has very clearly, Captain Sullenberg has very clearly said it out. Like, it is just that everyone knows everything. The senators today very clearly said, like, Boeing has been. Dixon says, no, I cannot say anything. So everyone knows everything. The only thing, the money problem is there, like it is a kind of immunity. The money is the biggest immunity. Then a layer of lawyers, they are protected. The team of lawyers are there. Money is there, the amount of money involved, then elections, the huge stakes. So everyone knows everything about Max, and our efforts basically are bringing a ray of light into that dark room. It is a dark room. So the minds, when we are talking, everyone is coming to know about it. That is our effort. That is the effort in the dark, but it is a ray of light, Paul. We have lost what we have lost. Nobody can repay us, but it is something, what we are doing, it is a kind of catharsis for us, that it is bringing us back, some comfort that the sacrifices don't go waste,
Yes.
Thank you. So,
Right.
may that culture, maybe my final statement, may that culture of complacency in the US, may we see it go. I mean, we saw it, and I want to mention that here, Jeffrey Epstein, a case of we saw how complacency can work all along and eventually hurt a lot of people along the way. We don't want Boeing and the FAA to act in a similar manner, and we don't want lawmakers, policymakers, and top people within the government in the US to do the same, to do a similar thing. We want to see changes, and we would want to see Boeing acknowledging that they caused the death of all these people, and that's all what we ask. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Pam.
Paul, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
and
to everybody. Go ahead.
Thank you. May I
Catherine?
tell something about my personal experiment with Boeing? Well, I didn't used to know Boeing before the crash, just because I usually don't take planes. I'm totally terrified since I'm a young girl. But afterwards, I was like you. Well, I knew Boeing a little much, but when preparing the travel to Ethiopia, it was a big deal for me, because a big issue, because I was totally scared. So when I discussed with Blake Emergency, I asked for me and my son, aged 17, just to ask for the possibility to travel business class, because I was totally terrified. I get hypnotized and get psychology sessions and everything. And they told, of course, yes, you can, but you pay the complement. I was okay. And they said, okay, we don't deal with that. You have to deal directly with Boeing Travel. So they sent me the papers, the application from Boeing Travel. So I discussed with them, and they asked me for my IDs, for my credit card numbers, and everything for me. And they wrote me as Dear Catherine, hi Catherine, and they always undersigned Boeing Travel, never a name, never everything. And they asked me for 10,000 USD, $10,000, and they had my credit card numbers. And then I reflected in myself and with friends from French Association and with my lawyer and with our accompagnator, and they said, no, you can't pay $10,000, it's not possible. And I wrote to Boeing saying, well, you know me by my name, you know my son by his name, you know everything about us, even my credit card numbers, you know my date of birth, domicile, email address, physical home address, and you still sign Boeing Travel, and I never get an answer. So it's to say, they claim, they reassure us they will change, they will change their enterprise culture, but they won't change anything. It was just 2 months ago. So remember how we were in Ethiopia, in how we felt that time and how they feel. And they can say, well, Mr. Millenburg or his replacement, he can say, okay, we don't know, it's Boeing Travel team, but they are Boeing. So I don't believe in any change.
Catherine, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I know this is very heartfelt for everyone. Is there somebody trying to speak?
Yes, it's me, Uget. I have actually a message for the American press. As you may know, in these two crashes with all the victims, there are several nationalities that lost their lives. We who stayed behind as their families, we are from all over the world. So I would just like to say to me personally, I would like to say to the American press that some of us, well, let me speak for myself. We have a voice. I have a voice. I have things to say. I know that this whole COVID situation and the distance, it's not easy maybe to connect, but if the press is interested in hearing from anyone else besides from the United States or anywhere, some of us might actually want to share or to to have some time to speak on this. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Okay, Huguette, thank you again. I'm hoping I'm saying your name correctly, and thank you again. We appreciate your very, very heartfelt comments. And the media has said that you're very intelligent, by the way, your comments in some in language here. Anyway, I mean, everybody in their own way is expressing themselves, and it's very helpful to the press, I think, to hear from all of you, to hear just how international of a problem this is. And it's not just limited to America. So, I mean, today's forum happened to be in Washington, D.C., but obviously there's other avenues and other methods and ways, hopefully, that all of you will see the justice that all of you really need for your family members. And hopefully maybe, I don't know if there is a thing as closure here, but it's just the wounds are just too deep. But I'm hoping, as I say, that everybody got a chance to say what they wanted to say, and the media I know was on, and a lot of them have to run, I think, for their deadlines now. But I think some of you have email addresses for them, or if you do want to say anything further, I can get you email addresses for the press. And if you want to comment to them further, I'm happy to pass it on to you. I think most of you should have my email. I'm Pam Menaker at cliffordlaw.com. I think there's people obviously on here who our firm does not represent, but I'm happy to pass on anyway if you need some media information. So with that, I'm hoping then if everybody has had a chance to say what they needed, and I really appreciate and thank everybody for their time and able to somehow weather again through this, through expressing yourselves and opening yourselves up, because hopefully we will see change. So thank you again, and I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting if that's okay. And we'll see if there's a need to do this again. We'll certainly, if all of you want to participate again, I'm happy to inform all of you if there's a need for this again, as things keep occurring, obviously, with this case and with this crash, okay, and the two crashes, okay? And all of you take care. Take care and be safe. Please be safe, okay? Thank you. Okay, thank you, Don. Okay, take care. Bye.
Thank you, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.